So apparently, I watched this video that talks about how the genetic diversity of humans is, in the grand scheme of things, extremely minimal. According to what this video said, the average human has like a genetic match of about 99% with any other human on the planet. And so to have that much of our genetic code be that similar is extremely bizarre in the animal kingdom. What they said is that chimps' DNA, which is a close relative of ours, right? The average DNA in chimps is more diverse than in humans, right? And you would think that that's very strange, considering that humans live on just about anywhere they possibly can on the globe, right? The planet is covered in humans. It's not covered in chimps, right? Or chimpanzees, I should say, right? And so, considering that humans live all across the planet, you would think that there would be more genetic diversity among humans than in the chimpanzees. However, there's not. And so that's very interesting. And the reasoning for this is it kind of backs up the out of Africa model, because in Africa, there are certain people in Africa that have more genetic diversity than any other, country or race, right? So the people that, are people that originate from Africa or still live in Africa tend to have a greater diversity in their genetic code, because humans moved out of Africa, and the humans that moved out of Africa were the humans that then eventually populated the entire planet. And so because of that, the human genome is very similar across the world, and even amongst other hominids, it's very similar. So it's very interesting, right? And so there is evidence also. There's human remains that have been found with genetic samples, and those people have no genetic connection to humans today, right? Their lineage was never actually passed on to the humans that live on the planet today. And so based off of this, the assumption is basically, or the theory is that there have been multiple surges of humans coming out of Africa trying to populate the planet or expand and failing, right? They come out, they die off. They come out, they die off. They come out, they die off, basically. Until eventually we didn't. And then we span the entire planet, right? And so I guess the question to ask is, what changed and when did it change, right? And I guess the thing, the answer is we'll never really know for certain, most likely. But what is a likely reasoning for this is either one, cognitive advancement reached a certain level, right? A certain level of cognitive thinking and communal living and tool making, technology, advanced to a level that made it viable. Or in previous attempts, right, to move out, the species would move out and then kind of specialize into a particular niche, which um, either failed at some point, became a different species that eventually died off, or they just never actually survived, right? The conditions were too different, too drastic of a change to survive. And so we have, so there's Homo sapien, right? Homo sapiens sapiens or something like that, right? Which is the modern human, which there's evidence of interbreeding with Neanderthals because there is Neanderthal DNA in the average human, a small percentage, but there is. And so that is evidence of interbreeding going on between species that, diverged and then eventually kind of remerged with the, end result is only humans, the modern human exists, right? And so a potential theory for this basically is that things worked out that time because we were able to either able and or willing to communicate and work with the native species that like humanoid species or hominin species that developed in the region. And by learning from them, we were capable of equipping ourselves to survive in more conditions, right? Which allowed us to then evolve those concepts and practices into something that allowed us to survive basically anything, anywhere, which allowed us to then conquer the world basically and cover the entire planet with people. And so it's just very interesting. And it really kind of puts things into perspective because there was multiple rounds of we expanded out, but we failed and died off. We expanded out, but we failed and died off. We expanded out, but we failed and died off, right? Until one time, boom, it worked, right? I have a feeling that this is not only the case with, humans expanding their presence on the planet. I think this can also be then translated to other things like the evolution of consciousness, right? And the evolution of species as a whole, right? Because you can think about humans as, we expanded out of Africa, failed, and then we expanded out of Africa, failed, right? But you can also think about humans emerged on the planet, failed, and then they died off, and then humans emerged on the planet, failed, and then they died off, and then humans re-emerged on the planet, failed, and they died off. And we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? And what exactly humans are in the grand scheme of things is, it's just a concept really more than anything, right? Whatever the most cognitively aware, conscientious species on the planet is at the time, that's what I'm going to denote as humans, right? So whether or not they looked exactly like humans do today is up for debate. The answer is probably no. They wouldn't have, but whatever species developed on the planet, right, it then got its go at survival, and if it failed, then, it dies off, and then it starts again. Because, advanced, like if you really think about the time scale we're working with, it's just insane, right? The known history of the world is only a couple thousand years, right? Known history is only a few thousand years. If you look at this grand scheme of the Earth's history, right, it's insane. Right? We have no idea exactly how things played out. Like, we are trying to piece together our understanding of the past from scraps, right? And we look at primitive humans, right, as these stupid creatures. But I think it is far more likely that humans' intellectual prowess and awareness and, consciousness and all these things has not evolved much since technology took over. And technology took over a long time ago. So I think it is far more fair to argue that humans are as smart as they've ever been and as dumb as they've ever been. And for that exact reason, if you think that that technological advancement was inevitable, right, then who's to say it didn't have attempts made in the past that just died out, right? I was just talking about the Bronze Age collapse, right? Civilization was on track to head into an industrial revolution over 4,000 years ago. But before it had the chance, it was decimated, and every city that could be destroyed basically was. And I think that is something important to take note of, because who's to say that was the first time, right? We have the flood myth, right? Where the earth was flooded and, most of the world was killed off, right? That myth comes from something, right? And so whether or not it was a God-ordained flood, right? If there was a mass extinction event of any scale that happened throughout history, right? It just goes to show that, our current existence is not unique. It is not the first attempt, and it will probably not be the last. So if we fail, there will be something that comes after. Will it be humanity starting again from scratch, similar to how the Dark Ages led to a significant reset in technology and understanding? I don't know. But I wouldn't put it out. I wouldn't put it out of the question for society to collapse and for a lot of technology to be lost and require relearning in the future. Because we have some very stupid practices and ideas and understandings of the world, right? And if we don't get that in check, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a big problem. It already is a big problem. But, it is what it is, I guess. So, yeah. Peace out.